Jake Morris and Karen Price never imagined that what began as a fun night at Brookhaven's annual zombie festival would turn into a nightmare of blood, fear, and unanswered questions. One moment they were laughing among the crowd, the next they were caught in a scene of horror no one could have predicted, a crime that would haunt the town forever. The Florida Zombie Festival had always been the pride of Brookhaven, a small coastal town known for its quirky traditions and tight-knit community. Every October, people from all over the state would pour into the streets dressed in torn clothes, splattered in fake blood, and painted to resemble the undead. What started years ago as a small local gathering had grown into a full-scale event with thousands of visitors, music stages, food trucks, costume contests, and night-long parties. It was supposed to be harmless fun, a weekend where everyone could let loose and play pretend. But in 2022, something about the festival felt different. In the days leading up to it, the weather had been strangely gloomy, gray clouds hanging low over the town. Some vendors canceled last minute, citing problems with permits and unexpected shortages. Even the main sponsor pulled out, forcing organizers to scale down on security and lighting. Still, the town refused to cancel. It had become a tradition too important to lose, one that brought in more money than any other weekend of the year. No one wanted to believe anything could go wrong in a place as peaceful as Brookhaven. By sunset on the first night, the streets were packed with people. Loud music pulsed through the air, and the smell of popcorn, barbecue, and fried dough drifted from every corner. Teenagers ran through the crowds laughing, and families posed for photos under neon signs that read, "The Dead Walk Tonight." The sight was both strange and beautiful. Thousands of costumed people pretending to be monsters, yet full of life. But beneath the laughter, there was a tension no one could name. Some said it was the thick humidity. Others blamed the dim lighting that made everything feel more sinister than usual. As the night deepened, that uneasy feeling grew stronger. Streetlights flickered and several food stands lost power for a few minutes before generators kicked in. People brushed it off as part of the spooky atmosphere, cheering and making jokes about a real zombie apocalypse. No one noticed that a few faces in the crowd didn't belong. Hidden among the costumed festival-goers were people dressed too perfectly, clothes too real, eyes too focused, movements too deliberate. They blended in effortlessly, walking among the living dead without drawing attention. Around 9 p.m., an announcement came over the speakers for everyone to gather near the main stage for the costume competition. The crowd surged forward, pressing close together in excitement. Music blasted, lights strobed, and smoke machines filled the air with a hazy fog. It was almost impossible to see clearly. Somewhere in that chaos, a young man named Jake Morris, one of the festival volunteers, disappeared from his post behind the stage. His absence went unnoticed at first. Everyone was too distracted by the flashing lights and laughter to realize something terrible had just happened. As the clock ticked past midnight, the celebration continued, unaware that the cheerful illusion of the festival had already cracked. The Florida Zombie Festival was no longer just about fake blood and costumes. Something real and dangerous was moving through the crowd, and no one would understand it until the sun rose and the laughter faded, leaving only the echoes of what once felt like harmless fun. When the first signs of trouble appeared, most people thought it was part of the act. Around midnight, a volunteer named Karen Price noticed a faint red trail on the pavement behind the main stage. It shimmered oddly under the stage lights, blending in with the sticky mess of spilled drinks and fake blood that coated the ground. She assumed it was just a leftover prop from one of the performers, something that had been dragged off stage. But as she followed it toward a narrow alley between the tents, the smell grew stronger. Metallic and sour, nothing like the sweet scent of corn syrup. Her flashlight trembled slightly in her hand, as she traced the streaks until the beam landed on something pale and still. For a moment she couldn't tell if it was real. The figure was lying on its side, half covered by a tarp, wearing the shredded costume of a zombie extra. The makeup was disturbingly realistic, the kind that made it hard to tell where paint ended and skin began. But then she saw the way the body was twisted, the unnatural stiffness in the limbs. The realization came slowly, like ice creeping up her spine. The blood wasn't fake. The man wasn't acting. He was dead. By the time she screamed, the noise of the crowd swallowed it. The music was still blasting, people were still dancing, and the announcer on stage was shouting over the microphone about the next contest. When security finally noticed the commotion, they rushed in expecting a drunken brawl or a medical emergency. The truth hit them harder than anything they'd ever seen in their quiet town. Within minutes, the area behind the stage was cordoned off with yellow tape, though keeping people back proved nearly impossible. Hundreds of attendees, many of them still laughing, crowded closer to see what was happening. Some even took pictures, believing it was a staged horror scene. Police sirens cut through the music, and the DJ reluctantly turned the speakers off. The silence that followed was almost worse than the chaos. A sudden awareness spreading through the crowd that something real had shattered the fantasy. Officers identified the body as Jake Morris, a 24-year-old volunteer from the nearby community college. He had been working the sound equipment earlier that night, seen by dozens of people, but no one could say exactly when he vanished. The cause of death was immediately suspicious. A single deep wound across his neck, too clean and precise for an accident. Investigators noted how perfectly it had been hidden behind the stage curtain, placed in an area that only staff and performers were supposed to access. The confusion deepened as police tried to gather statements. Everyone's memory was blurred by costume makeup, flashing lights, and alcohol. Witnesses contradicted each other, describing different versions of what they thought they saw. Some swore they noticed a figure dressed in a black zombie mask slipping away through the crowd moments before the discovery, while others insisted it was part of the entertainment. The lines between fantasy and reality had dissolved completely. As the early morning hours arrived, the once festive grounds of Brookhaven were littered with abandoned costumes and trampled decorations. The laughter that had filled the air only hours before was gone, replaced by the low hum of police radios and the whispers of terrified locals. The Florida Zombie Festival was over, and Brookhaven would never see it the same way again. By sunrise, Brookhaven was unrecognizable. The same streets that had been alive with color and laughter just hours before were now sealed off with police barriers and crime scene vans. Reporters from every corner of Florida began arriving before noon, swarming the small town with cameras, questions, and sensational headlines. They called it the night the zombies turned real. Locals gathered in disbelief, watching as investigators moved in and out of the festival grounds collecting evidence. The once vibrant decorations now looked grim, stained with the aftermath of something far darker than anyone could have imagined. The police worked quickly to identify witnesses and gather footage, but something was off from the start. Several of the security cameras placed around the event had been deliberately damaged. Wires were cut, lenses were smashed, and the feeds from certain areas had gone dark hours before the murder took place. Whoever had done this had known exactly where to strike. It wasn't random. It was planned. Detectives realized they were dealing with someone who understood how the festival operated, someone familiar with the layout, schedules, and blind spots. As officers went through reports from that night, a troubling pattern began to appear. 3 attendees had been reported missing by their families, 2 friends who had come from Tampa, and a woman who had been visiting from Georgia. Their cars were still parked nearby, but their phones had gone silent. When police searched the festival grounds, they found the missing individual's personal belongings scattered in different locations: a purse behind a dumpster, a phone dropped in the mud, a jacket near the bleachers. Nothing connected them at first glance, but all 3 had last been seen in the same area, the north side of the park near a food vendor that nobody seemed to remember clearly. Investigators tracked down the list of vendors and noticed one entry that stood out. A food stand listed as Dead Bite Grill had been approved just 2 days before the event under a name that led nowhere. The listed phone number was disconnected, and the address traced back to an abandoned building outside town. Witnesses vaguely recalled a black and red tent with a menu board covered in horror-themed jokes. But when police went to the spot the next morning, it was empty. The tent, the truck, and the staff had all vanished. Rumors began spreading quickly across social media. Some people claimed the killer had been hiding inside the crowd the entire time, blending in so well no one could tell the difference. Others believed there was more than one person involved, a small group working together, using the chaos of the festival to move unnoticed. Photos from the night flooded online, showing countless people in masks and costumes, any one of whom could have been responsible. Detectives followed every lead they could find, but each one ended in confusion. It was as if the perpetrators had melted into the very crowd they hunted in. With the missings still unaccounted for, and the festival now declared a crime scene, Brookhaven's sense of safety was gone. The town that once thrived on celebration was now buried under fear and suspicion. Something deeply organized had taken place that night, and the people responsible had walked away unnoticed, leaving behind only silence and questions that no one could answer. Days turned into weeks, and the investigation into the Florida Zombie Festival only grew more unsettling. Brookhaven, once a town of small businesses and cheerful parades, now felt like a place permanently stuck in shadow. Police presence was everywhere, but answers were nowhere to be found. Each new lead led investigators deeper into a web of confusion. Rumors spread faster than facts, and fear began to feel like a living thing moving through the community. Businesses near the fairgrounds shut their doors early. Parents stopped letting their children walk to school. Everyone was waiting for something new to be uncovered, something to explain what had happened. But what surfaced next was far worse than anyone expected. 2 weeks after the festival, a park ranger made a chilling discovery. While patrolling the outskirts of a wooded area about 10 miles from town, he noticed a foul odor drifting from an old dirt road rarely used anymore. Following the scent, he stumbled upon an abandoned storage facility hidden behind overgrown bushes and rusted fencing. Inside one of the unlocked units, he found several plastic containers, broken props, and mannequin parts splattered with dried blood. At first, it looked like leftover decorations from the festival, but the deeper he looked, the clearer it became that this was no storage for costumes. Among the debris were personal items, a wallet, a cracked cell phone, and a student ID belonging to one of the missing attendees. When the police arrived, the scene inside the unit was almost unbearable. The walls were lined with hooks, holding tattered costumes that matched those used at the event, though these were stained and torn in ways no makeup could replicate. In the corner sat a camera setup, still plugged into a portable power source, with several memory cards neatly arranged beside it. What those recordings revealed changed the investigation completely. The footage appeared to have been shot during the festival itself, showing the crowd from various angles, as if someone had been documenting the chaos. At first, the videos looked harmless, people laughing, dancing, pretending to be zombies. But the focus slowly shifted. The camera began following specific individuals through the crowd, tracking them for minutes at a time. The victims all shared one thing in common. They were alone. The final clip ended abruptly after showing a figure wearing a black zombie mask with a cracked jawpiece standing motionless among the dancers. He turned toward the camera and stared directly into it before the screen cut to static. Investigators began cross-referencing the footage with photos and social media posts from that night. The same masked figure appeared repeatedly, always in the background, always watching. Witnesses who reviewed the images swore they had seen him walking near the North Food Court area, the same place where the Dead Bite Grill stand had been set up. It was as though the man had been part of the staff, moving freely between restricted areas without anyone noticing. The discovery of the storage unit sent shockwaves through Brookhaven. The press labeled it the graveyard room, and the footage leaked online within days, drawing national attention. Amateur detectives and conspiracy theorists flooded forums with speculation about a hidden network of killers using festivals as cover. Authorities urged the public not to spread unverified information, but the fear had already taken hold. People began seeing the masked man in every crowd photo, every blurred reflection, every shadow captured on film that night. Whether it was paranoia or truth, one thing was certain. Whoever had orchestrated the events at the Florida Zombie Festival had planned it down to the smallest detail, and they were still out there watching. Months passed, and the Florida Zombie Festival case remained unsolved, leaving Brookhaven gripped by fear and suspicion. The town that had once celebrated its quirky traditions now avoided anything resembling a large gathering. The fairgrounds sat abandoned, overgrown with weeds, and the stage where music once blared was rotting under the Florida sun. Locals reported strange occurrences near the site, flickering lights, unexplained noises, and shadows moving among the trees at night. Some claimed to see figures in black masks watching from a distance, though none could be approached. The fear that the killers might return kept the town in a state of uneasy vigilance. Authorities continued their investigation, but leads had run dry. The black-masked figure remained unidentified, and the Dead Bite grill vendor vanished without a trace. DNA from the storage unit provided partial matches, but nothing conclusive. Despite extensive searches, the bodies of the missing attendees were never found. Each new tip seemed to fizzle, and the trail grew colder by the week. Yet the community could not forget. Social media buzzed with theories, ranging from a lone psychopath exploiting the festival's chaos to a group of organized criminals using public events as hunting grounds. In 2024, almost 2 years after the incident, a hiker exploring the swampy outskirts near the festival grounds made a discovery that reignited public interest. Partially buried in the mud and decaying foliage, he found a black zombie mask with a broken jaw piece, identical to the one seen in the festival footage. Authorities recovered it immediately and sent it for DNA analysis. The results were shocking. Traces of blood belonged to one of the missing attendees, confirming that at least part of the crime had been committed in the surrounding swamps, not just on festival grounds. The discovery suggested that the killer had moved the victims out of town, taking advantage of the isolated areas of Brookhaven to hide evidence. Despite this breakthrough, no new arrests were made. The storage unit, the festival footage, and the mask all provided clues, but the perpetrator remained elusive. Some investigators believed the person had meticulously planned an escape, leaving no traceable patterns. Others feared there might be more victims, possibly from previous years, whose disappearances had gone unnoticed. The idea that a predator had been blending into crowds undetected for years left residents feeling exposed and vulnerable, even in their own homes. Over time, the Florida Zombie Festival case became more than just a local tragedy. It became a cautionary tale about how easily celebration could mask danger. Brookhaven's streets remained quieter during October, with families avoiding the fairgrounds entirely. Residents spoke in hushed tones about the night when fantasy and horror collided, leaving behind questions that might never be answered. The black-masked figure became a ghostly symbol of what lurks behind a smile, a reminder that chaos can hide in plain sight, and that some mysteries are designed never to be solved. Even today, the story of the Florida Zombie Festival lingers in the minds of those who were there. The images of flashing lights, the laughter that once filled the air, and the sudden realization of true horror remain etched in memory. The festival may be gone, but the shadow it cast continues to haunt Brookhaven. The killers have never been caught, their identities unknown, and their motives unclear. In the quiet corners of the town, and in the stories told around campfires and online forums, the fear remains. That one day the masks may return, and with them the nightmare that began in what was supposed to be a night of harmless fun.